Oral questions. Questions. Honorable Leader of the Opposition to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre poilievre.
Leader of the Opposition. Canadians are facing the threat of tariffs by the United States. Now, what's the situation here after 9 years with this Prime Minister? Our economy is weak. Our armed forces, our military is weak. Our borders are weak. The Prime Minister himself is weak. When will we finally have an election so that Canadians can choose themselves a strong leader who will protect the economy and put Canada first? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, how ironic. We've given the Conservative Party a chance to put Canadians first, but what do? Well, they vote against initiatives that would help Canadians. They voted against dental care. They vote against the school food program. They voted against more spots in daycare. And they're going to vote against the tax break we're offering Canadians to help them over the next few months. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party leader rises every day to block help for Canadians. He's only thinking about his own interests, not what's best for Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. This Prime Minister is just too weak. He is too weak to protect our economy against Donald Trump's threats. For 3 weeks now, it's been 3 weeks since the president elected.
Look at that hair. Oh, that looks pretty slick.
Repeating his threats for weeks. And what's the Prime Minister's plan? A Zoom call. A Zoom call with provincial premiers who feel that this Prime Minister is too weak. Quebec will send the Quebec Provincial Police to protect its borders. Alberta says that this Prime Minister is not defending and standing up for our economy. When will we have an election so that we can get ourselves a strong leader who will protect our economy?
Yeah.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Sooner than later, I bet.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservative Party leader is playing petty partisan politics and putting on a show in this House, we are working every day to help Canadians. Members of Parliament represent their constituents here in this place. That's what we're doing on this side. But on the other side, everyone is just helping the Conservative leader rather than constituents. We are helping with school food, with daycare. They're not supporting that. They say that everything is broken, but they're the ones trying to break everything for Canadians. We're here to invest in Canadians. They're here to sow chaos and discord, to break things, to not help Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Face an unprecedented threat from President Trump's potential tariffs. And what is the state of things here in Canada? Our economy is weakened. Our borders are weakened. Our military is weakened. And most of all, our Prime Minister is weakened. Why can't we have a carbon tax election so Canadians can choose a leader with the brains and backbone to protect our economy and put Canada first?
Yeah, buddy. I'm down for that. Throw some W's in the chat.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, while the Leader of the Opposition focuses on himself and on me, we're staying focused on Canadians. We're investing in the kinds of things that are going to help people. We stood up for dental care. We stood up to deliver a school foods program. We're moving forward with more spaces of $10 a day childcare, all things that the Conservative Party voted against. But most recently, Mr. Speaker, they've announced they're going to be voting against the GST break for Canadians over the next couple of months, something that's going to help people at a time where they need that little extra help. But he doesn't care about helping Canadians. He just wants them to suffer more, so maybe he has a chance.
He's literally saying this while he wears a friendship bracelet.
Mr. Speaker, he's lost control of our borders. He's lost control of immigration. He's lost control of spending. That's right. And with that erratic performance, we now see that he's lost control of himself. No wonder foreign leaders believe they can walk all over him. They see him as a weak, incompetent leader who does not even have the support of his own party. Yes. Why won't he put the country first for a change, allow a carbon tax election so Canadians can have a Prime Minister who will protect this country?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You can tell he stood up all night against the mirror trying to practice that line. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we've got our sleeves rolled up. We are fighting for Canadians every single day. We will stand up for good Canadian jobs. We will make sure we continue to have great relations with the United States as we build a stronger future on both sides of the border. We're going to continue to deliver the kinds of things that matter for Canadians. Dental care, free insulin, school food programs, all programs that Conservatives voted against, and now they're going to vote against a GST break for Canadians right across the country for the next few months. That's not being there for Canadians, that's being there for himself.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Just to prove how weak and out of control he's become, he just engaged in a mass hallucination, listing off a bunch of programs that actually don't even exist outside of his own head. But if he's not prepared to stand up for the country,
Oh my
comes to
God.
trade, then why don't we have a real election about taxes? He can run on his tiny 2-month tax trick, and I'll run on my common sense plan to axe the tax and axe the sales tax on new homes. How about a carbon tax election now?
Man, Pierre is good today.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We saw it perfectly clearly just now, the fact that he is trying to gaslight Canadians. He just
No, he's not.
dental care program, to pick one, doesn't even exist. Well, tell that to the 1 million plus Canadians who've gone to see the dentist, many for the first time in years because of the Canada Dental Care benefit. This is what he's standing against. He's trying to convince Canadians that everything's broken while he forces his MPs to vote against a GST break that's going to help Canadians over the coming months. That's not leadership. That's pandering to the lowest common denominator.
Man, Trudeau is actually nuts. His programs don't work.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has everyone unanimously against him and his so-called Christmas present. Canadians don't want it. Business owners don't want it. Retirees don't want it. Students don't want it. Economists don't want it. Even those who are well off and kind-hearted, they don't want it. No one wants the Prime Minister's Christmas gift. When will the Prime Minister understand that one cannot buy votes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling. That's why we are offering a tax break to all Canadians for
Dude, the last time Trudeau stood up,
Tax break,
he just called us the lowest common
the
denominator.
restaurant, at the grocery store. We know that Canadians are struggling these
He's a
days.
fucking moron.
We have one of the best financial situations of all G7 countries, and that means that we're able to help Canadians a little bit. The Bloc might not want that, but that's because the Bloc Québécois, Mr. Speaker, all they want is to pick fights and squabbles. They don't want the government to truly help Canadians and Quebecers, but despite them in their opposition, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Reminder to smash the like button and subscribe, guys.
Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are struggling are those who will not receive a rebate check. You know who is struggling, Mr. Speaker? The Liberals themselves. The Conservatives don't seem to support the proposal. The NDP neither. The Bloc Québécois neither. No one in this House seems to support the rebate check. If the Prime Minister is so sure of himself, why doesn't he make it a matter of confidence and have a confidence vote?
Look at that. The Conservatives are all standing up with the Bloc. Look at that. And look at the empty chairs on the Liberal side. Mary Ng's not there.
Order, please.
She's speaking to her Chinese overlords for China interference. Randy's not there. He's muting the microphone. He's about to mute the microphone.
Order, please.
Hey! I'll write another strong worded letter.
Le très honorable Premier Ministre.
You son of a bitch.
Prime Minister. It's clear, Mr. Speaker, that opposition parties want a political excuse to vote against something that Canadians do want. Canadians need a tax break. That's exactly what we are giving them. it will be up to opposition parties to decide whether they want to be there for their constituents, to be there for Canadians who are struggling, or if they prefer playing petty partisan politics and picking fights. The Bloc and the Conservatives want to say that Canada's broken, but we on this side are here for Canadians to support them and to help them when times are tough.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie.
Monsieur le Président, trouvez l'erreur.
Mr.
Bro, where the hell is
Tell me
Jagmeet?
what's wrong with this picture? On the one hand, we have Danielle, who is retired for medical reasons. Her disability income is $45,000 a year. On the other hand, we have her spouse, who earns $125,000 a year. Who's going to receive a $250 check in the spring? Yes, that's right. According to the Liberals, her spouse should receive a check, but not Danielle herself. She's being punished because she's too sick to work. That makes no sense whatsoever. My question to the Prime Minister is simple. What does he have to say to Danielle and to all retirees?
They don't get the check.
J'aimerais juste signaler à tous les députés.
I would like to say to all members to please be very careful in their
the hell up.
words.
I'll write another petition.
Bon côté de notre
They should pick words that are accepted. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Dans cette chambre depuis assez longtemps.
I've been in this house for long enough, Mr. Speaker, long enough to remember a time when the NDP stood up for Canada's workers. In fact, they were the party of workers in Canada. Now, workers who have been shouldering a heavy burden throughout the pandemic, throughout the inflation crisis, they have done so much and we have supported them. We're also supporting seniors and young people. But with this measure, with this rebate, we want to acknowledge the hard work of workers who need our support. The NDP is against it. The party that truly stands for workers is not the NDP, it's the government.
Member for l'honorable
Here we go, Pierre.
de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No sense, Mr. Speaker. I couldn't agree more. Here we have the NDP claiming to have torn up their deal, their carbon tax coalition with the Prime Minister. But then they taped it back together when he promised a 2-month tax trick. Then, after taking credit for it, the NDP says they didn't know what was in it. Right. And now they're opposed to it. Mr. Speaker, these two leaders can't even figure out how to give away $6 billion properly. Isn't it time for a carbon tax election so that we can elect a common sense government?
Yeah. Look at that, man. The Bloc's ready. Conservatives are ready. All you need is 14 Liberal MPs.
Speaker, MPs are supposed to represent their constituents here in Ottawa, but the Conservative Party MPs are choosing to represent their leader back in their constituency. I know Canadians across the country, including in Conservative ridings, are looking forward to paying no taxes on meals in restaurants or on all groceries or on kids' clothes for the next few months. But the leader is making them vote against these measures to help Canadians. If Conservative MPs want to stand up for Canadians, they need to stand up against their leader.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians
Mr.
are ready
Canadian.
to stand up and speak for themselves. The Prime Minister wants to lecture us about democracy. Then why don't we have a referendum? A referendum election where the choice will be the following. A tiny 2-month tax trick with the NDP Liberals, or a permanent axing of the carbon tax and axing the sales tax on new homes. Why not let Canadians decide now?
Let's go, man. Put some W's in the chat, folks.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, for the Leader of the Opposition to end the price on pollution would mean to end the Canada carbon rebate that comes to people's homes 4 times a year and delivers more money to middle-class Canadians than the price on pollution actually costs, while at the same time decreasing emissions. And in regards to housing, his failed housing proposal was to cut billions of dollars from cities across this country that they're investing in building housing. That would drive up property taxes taxes for homeowners, that would make it harder to build homes. He has a proposal that is electorally interesting for him, but won't do anything for Canadians.
The truckers carried us during the blip, and then look how Trudeau treated the truckers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Electorally interesting. That's his condescending way of saying Canadians actually like my plan. Because Canadians have figured out that after 9 years of this weak Prime Minister, spending $80 billion on housing, with the result being the doubling of housing costs, that spending billions more won't make any difference. We're going to slash that bureaucracy and use the savings to axe the sales tax on Canadian homes. Why won't he let Canadians decide?
Yeah. The carbon tax is just a redistribution of wealth to the lowest common denominator.
In conservative ridings across the country are speaking up that the investments we're making in the housing accelerator is helping them cut red tape, increase densification, create more homes more quickly. And the plan the Conservative Party has put forward to remove those billions of dollars from municipalities, just as they're tackling the housing crisis, would harm Canadians. But the Leader of the Opposition doesn't care about harming Canadians. What he wants to do is gain power, and he'll do anything he can to do that. While we stay focused on Canadians, he's focused on himself.
Nah, man, Canada first.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has run a groundbreaking experiment. He's put billions of dollars in a sack and offered it to politicians, and the finding? They're willing to accept the money. A groundbreaking sociological study. He wants to give more money to local politicians who block home building. We want to use the same money to cut taxes for the people who buy homes and build homes. Why won't we allow Canadians to decide whether they want the money to go to the politicians or to the people in a carbon tax election?
Trudeau's housing plan is to slow down immigration. That's it.
Or at least the Conservative leader is true to form in that he would rather pick fights with everyone than actually deliver for Canadians. We know, as we saw during the pandemic, as we've seen through the inflation challenges, working together with the provinces, working together with municipalities to get things built for Canadians is what they want. What does the Leader of the Opposition do? He insults people, but then he also votes against direct money in Canadians' pockets, whether it's with investments in childcare or dental care, whether it's investments in taking the tax off of groceries for the next few months. These are things that he's standing against out of political self-interest.
Opposition.
Just shows how out of control he's become. He can't stay on a subject. He brings up housing, so I agree. I just threw away my script and said, let's debate housing. So he now changes the subject back to his 2-month tax trick. Well, here's the trick, everyone. After the tax break runs out in February, they're going to
increase the carbon tax
on heat, housing, gas, and groceries, all as a part of a plan to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. So will he get himself under control, show some strength for a change, and call a carbon tax election?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, every day I get up in this house, I talk about one thing and one thing only: Canadians, and how Canadians, how they are where to grow, how we're there to grow a stronger economy for Canadians, with direct investments that will support them, with free insulin, with dental care, with more spaces in childcare, all things that the Leader of the Opposition is voting against. Yes, we're investing in the most ambitious housing solution that this country has ever seen. Things that he didn't do when he was Stephen Harper's failed housing minister. We're going to continue to stand up and fight for Canadians while the Leader of Opposition gets up, pulls off his little performances, and fights against me.
Yeah, he's going to fight against you. You're a freaking idiot.
He was going to talk about one thing, and then he rambled on about 10 or 15 things, all things he hallucinates that one day he might do if only he were given another 9 years in office, Mr. Speaker. Instead of talking about his real record, which is that he doubled housing costs, he doubled food bank use, he doubled the debt, and Now he wants to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. Mr. Speaker, we need a prime minister who's in control of himself. So why doesn't he call a carbon tax election so we can get one?
Oh my goodness, man. Pierre is making Trudeau look like an absolute clown.
I'll say it again. The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians. But the leader opposite wants to talk about one thing. He talks about food banks. Let's talk about the school food program. This is a program that sends federal dollars directly into school boards, directly to support delivering good food programs for kids. No bureaucracy, just investments in school food programs. The Conservative leader voted against it. And worse, he forced his own MPs to vote against it, to stand up against their constituents and side with him instead of in Canadians who need help.
Put an L in the chat for Trudeau. That was lame.